This video is brought to you by Scout Trooper, I think. This might not be the correct head because he's frowning real big. Okay, what we're looking in this section of 3.4 is buying a home. This is page 314. And the loans that you get for buying a home are called mortgages. They tend to be super long term, and what I mean by that is their length is typically 30 years. You can get 15-year loans, sometimes 10, sometimes 50 years. There are two main types of loans. There's the fixed rate mortgage, and there's the adjustable or the ARM loan. The adjustable rate mortgages, they fluctuate with the rates that are determined based on what's happening in the markets, whereas the fixed rate is just locked in for the lifetime of the loan. And then in either case, you can refinance these loans based on how things are going. I think it's best to get the fixed interest rate mortgage. Right now, interest rates are quite high, and so it's not. You don't want to get a mortgage right now if you can avoid it. One of the advantages typically of the adjustable rate mortgage is that you tend to get a lower payment at the beginning early on, and then in a couple of years it tends to jump up. And so the goal, like, often people will get this ARM mortgage and then refinance into a fixed rate mortgage before the rate goes up, before your monthly payment goes up. Okay, so let's look at some of the calculations that go in with these mortgage payments. One of the differences here between a mortgage and a car payment is the down payment is calculated typically as a percentage of the price of the home. A 20% down payment is a very common payment amount because it avoids the PMI, which is the mortgage insurance rate, or a mortgage insurance payment. And what that is insurance in the case that you default on the loan. So you're paying insurance to insure the lender. So you want to avoid that if you can by paying 20%. So here we're looking at a family that's buying a $224,000 home, basically $225,000 home. And if we want to figure out how much is their down payment, we would just calculate 20% of that. Same thing as in Unit 1. So the decimal version of that percentage times the amount, we're looking at $44,980 cash that we need to pay in order to get this loan started. So we need to pay this much, or have this much cash in our bank account. And then we're going to borrow the difference between that. So one way to calculate it is subtract it. The other way is to say, oh, we just need 80% of this initial amount. I'll show you both of those ways to calculate it. So here's the subtracting it. Oops. Or here is the percent that remains calculation, 80%. Either way, we're looking at, we need to borrow $179,920 in order to buy this home. That's what we're going to call the P, or the principal. Now, in this scenario that we're given, our author calculated the monthly payment for us. Note that it was a 5.5% interest rate for a 30-year mortgage. And what he's asking us to do in this case is say, well, how much would we have paid for this home if this were the monthly payment? Well, it's a 30-year mortgage, so we're going to make this $1,021.57 payment for 30 years, and we're going to make it 12 times for each of those 30 years, because there's 12 months in a year. We're also needing to add in, for this total cost calculation, the initial amount of cash we had to pay. In other words, the down payment to get the total cost of this home. So by the end, this is what we will have paid for this $224,900 home. It's awful. $412,745.20. That's almost double the initial price of the home. Now, we did this over a 30-year period. So maybe it's not really as bad as it looks, because you had to live somewhere, right? And you could have been renting somewhere, and the end of those 30 years, you don't have a home to your name, and so that rent is all gone. So at least at the end of this, maybe you paid double the price of the home, but you still have the home. The other thing to consider is maybe the value of this $225,000 home has gone up, so maybe it's worth this much at this point. Okay, as we keep going here, the author shows us how to take the monthly payment formula and turn it into from the student loan and turn it into the monthly payment formula for a mortgage. And I already showed you this, and I really don't understand why our author uses in payments per year for T years and why he doesn't just put a 12 there, because it's a monthly payment formula and we only ever have 12 months in a year. So I'm going to suggest let's ignore all this and just note that what this monthly payment should be is the principal times whatever the interest rate is divided by 12, and then all of that divided by 1 minus 1 plus the rate again divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times the number of years we're taking this loan for. This is the monthly payment formula for mortgages. It's really the same one I suggested we use for student loans that were longer than 10 years or less than 10 years, right? Really, we could use this formula for anyone. We could use it for car payments. It's just cars, we typically report the length of the loan in months. So let's do a calculation now using that formula that says, well, how much is the monthly payment going to be if this family did the 20% down payment on that same home? So they're going to borrow $179,920. But they're going to do a 15-year mortgage. So the length is 15, and their rate here is going to be 0.055. So a little bit different than the initial amount. And let's see, we'll put this all in and get our monthly payment. Now notice you need the negative, and then it's going to be 12 times 15. And how we type this in Desmos, we have to be careful as I showed in a previous video. You need parentheses up there to ensure that that 15 is actually multiplied in the exponent and not dropped out of the exponent. Okay, so there's the top part, and then we got 1 minus parentheses 1 plus 0.055 divided by 12, all that in parentheses. Oops. Got an extra set that aren't necessary. Now here I'm going to do negative, and I'm going to put parentheses to ensure that this 12 times 15 stays in the exponent. And you can see that our monthly payment has gone up significantly. It is now $1,470 and approximately 10 cents, an extra $400 a month. Remember, the previous amount for the 30-year loan was $1,021. Let's see, 21.57. So the difference between these two is 1470.10. So an extra $448.53 a month. All right. The next question, question 5, says, well, what's the difference in total cost? Well, let's calculate that. We got our 1470.10 times 15 times 12. And we need to add to that the $44,980 as the down payment. This is how much we would pay over the lifetime of that 15-year loan. Compare that to the amount we paid over the 30-year loan, and we'll get the difference. We save $103,000, $147,000.20 by paying this in 15 years as opposed to 30 years. Seems like the option to go, but the question is, can you afford in your budget an extra $400 a month, really $450 a month, to do this? That's the challenge, right? I don't know that I could afford personally an extra $450 a month to go to my mortgage payment in order to save this much over those 15 years.